Hello, good evening and welcome to BizFirst in Focus. Recently, the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka published a very interesting report. I have that report here with me in my hands. This is what it's called: The Financial Impact of Delay in Implementation of Power Plants as per the Generation Expansion Plan 2018 to 2037. The reason that this report makes for very alarming reading is that it speaks of losses going into billions of rupees for not doing anything. Losses caused by the failure to take any sort of action. To talk about this and more on BizFirst in Focus this week, we're joined by Mr. Damitha Kumarasinghe, the Director General of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka. Mr. Kumarasinghe, thank you very much for coming on the program. Can I start by asking you, what prompted the PUCSL to conduct this study and to draft this report?
No, actually, now if you look at the history and the way forward, we came across that from past also, the implementation of the generation plan has not been done at the times it required to be done. So most of the plans that were in the plans and that are in the plans are implemented with a delay. So that therefore we thought of conducting a study to ascertain the financial impact of delay in implementation of generation plans for the period of 2018 to 2020.
Now, in some of these cases that you have looked at, financial impact due to delaying power plants between 2018 to 2020, you're estimating here calculated loss for a month of delay for a month is 1.55 billion rupees. This is regarding the Keruwalapitia 300 megawatt natural gas power plant, the proposed combined cycle power plant in Keruwalapitia. If the plant is going to be delayed for 18 months, as per the CEB implementation plan, the loss will increase to 28 billion rupees. I mean, that's more money than the government is hoping to get from the debt recovery levy that has been proposed through the budget. These are like, it's staggering, it's crazy amounts of money. What can the PUCSL and the government do to sort of get the CEB moving, to get them on the ball?
Now, actually, as regulator, what we can do is in our tariff methodology, all the inefficiency costs will not be passed through to the consumer. So, as regulator, what we can do is that. So, but these amounts are alarming, so we have to ensure CEBs will also be financially viable institution for us, for people to get electricity 24/7. So we have to balance both parts: inefficient cost not going to the consumer as well as financial viability of the CEB. So with these delays and the loss, the amounts of financial impact that we are talking about in delay in the power plants, we also find it difficult to balance these two interests. That is the issue we have. Now, the Keruwalapitia combined cycle power plant was originally due somewhere in 2019, but the latest implementation plan submitted by CEB, it is now due in 2020, so almost 1 year to 18-month delay. Those delays cost CEB and the economy a lot of money.
In the meantime, we saw in the newspapers this morning, while the CEB has said Keruwalapitia 2020, sorry. While the CEB has said Keruwalapitia in 2020, the Secretary to the Ministry of Power and Renewable Energy, Mr. BMS Bhattagoda, has said that construction on the Keruwalapitia LNG power plant will begin in 6 weeks. Is that possible?
Yeah, no, the information we have is that all the evaluations are coming to an end. So it's a matter of awarding and start construction. But still, it will be implemented somewhere in 2020 according to CEB's implementation plans.
Because there is a procedure, right? I mean, it's not just about awarding the tenders. You have to call for tenders. You have to get the bids. You have to select the most qualified bidder, uh, best value for money, and then you have to award the contract. Then you have to give them a couple of years at least, I'm guessing, to complete the. So it's so what the CEB, when the CEB says 2020, that's a realistic estimate, isn't it?
Yeah, now actually the tendering process is over. So it's a matter of awarding the contract to the relevant parties. So you need about 2.5–3 years for these plants to come in. So 2020
maybe even beyond 2020.
No, 2020 should be viable. Yeah.
Mr. Kumar Singh, can I ask you, how did you calculate, how did the PUCSL calculate the losses that would be incurred as a result of the delay in the implementation of the construction of and adding these proposed power plants to the national grid?
Yeah, actually what we did was, now let's say the combined cycle power plant, the lowest bid is somewhere around 14+ rupees per kilowatt hour, which includes a 2-year running on diesel also. And if you delay it by certain amount of time, then for that time frame we have to supply energy through expensive sources
like oil.
So it is what we did was, we know the prices of the existing bid, so we know the costs of implementation of natural gas plant versus implementation, so replacing it with thermal oil plants. So that difference is the one that we refer to.
So this is, it all looks very simple to me. I mean, the report is very concise and to the point, and a quick just breeze through the report and you grasp that the problem here is non-implementation. Basically, at the end of the day, it's if the CEB does not get its act together and move on some of these power plant projects, then the country is going to suffer losses going into the tens of billions of rupees. What penalties is the PUCSL empowered to impose on the CEB or CEB officials for the failure, if they do cause losses to the country in the amount of money that we're talking about?
Actually, PUCSL is the regulator. So what we can do is, we have to balance the interests of the utility as well as the consumer. So as far as consumer interests are concerned, we cannot legally pass the inefficient cost to the consumer. So whatever the inefficiencies, non-implementation issues, those costs should be borne by the Ceylon Electricity Board. We cannot pass it to the consumers.
It's an interesting question, Mr. Kumar Singh. Should the PUCSL be empowered to impose penalties on CEB officials in the event of non-compliance? That's an interesting question that I'm going to pose to our viewers. Please share your thoughts with us on our Facebook page. I'll see you after this short commercial break. Welcome back to Biz First in Focus. We're in conversation with Mr. Damita Kumarasinghe, the Director General of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka. We're talking about a report that the PUCSL compiled recently on the financial impact of delay in implementation of power plants. This report speaks of losses going into the tens of billions of rupees for each month that key power plant projects like the Kerawalla-Pittiya combined cycle power plant are delayed. An 18-month delay in the Kerawalla-Pittiya 300 megawatt combined cycle natural gas power plant would lead to a loss of 28 billion rupees. Meanwhile, we read in the papers today that a cabinet paper to seek policy directions for the CEB and the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka is being sought. The Ministry Secretary, Mr. BMS Batagoda, has said he is fed up of resolving issues. He has also given a pledge that the construction of the Kerawalla-Pittiya LNG power plant will begin in 6 weeks. He says that both the CEB and the PUCSL have been clashing, especially with regards to the implementation of long-term power generation plans. Mr. Kumar Singh, have the CEB and the PUCSL been clashing? Have you not been getting along?
Not really. What I can say is that the generation plan approval is with the Public Utilities Commission, and also we have to approve the least cost long-term generation expansion plan. So we have to make sure one thing, that is this plan is least cost, right? Now what we have approved is the least cost plan. For example, if you look at the plants which are in this plan, we have renewable plants as well as natural gas plants, the plan we have approved. So if you look at the prices, I think we have put out another paper on the present prices of these resources. The renewables are very cheap these days. With wind, tender was closed for about 10 rupees a kilowatt hour.
Yeah, I have that paper with me as well.
Yeah,
electricity generation costs issues.
Exactly.
Wind 10, solar 11 rupees 86 per kilowatt hour. Natural gas almost 15 rupees. Coal almost 19 rupees. Oil almost 23 rupees. And then there's also an additional line there regarding a 500 megawatt sample,
no, which has
been cancelled, but that would have cost over 33 rupees Celsius. So those are.
So if you look at these figures also, it is very clear the renewable and the natural gas power plants are cheaper, and the plan which Commission has approved is the least cost plan. So there's no issue with that. So it's a matter of CEB to implement this plan. So these delays are not only on the 2018-2037 plan. If you look at 2015-2034 plan, look at 2013-2032 plan, look at 2009-2028 plan. The plans which were there have been delayed throughout. So it's a natural occurrence.
Even the North Chole plant came after a long
delay, and these delays are costing a lot of financial burden to CEB itself. And what we are trying to say is that for the next 3 years, 2018 to 2020 period, we have about 850 megawatts of renewable plants and 300 megawatts of natural gas plants. So 1100 megawatts of renewable and natural gas plants for the next 3 years, which is about 25% of the existing installed capacity. So now it's a matter of implementing these plants quickly so that you can get the benefits of lower prices in these resources and ensure the viability of CEB and the economy in the medium run
and the long term as well.
In the long term as well. But so I don't think any issue in anyone accepting these prices and implementing it in time to ensure the long-term and medium-term benefits to the country and the institutions.
Yeah, but the Power and Energy Secretary is talking about a conflict. He's saying now the CEB, what is essentially being said is that the CEB and the PUCSL are at loggerheads, and they're unwilling to, that the CEB is unwilling to move ahead. So I want to ask you the question, does the CEB agree with the PUCSL's cost estimates for each of these power sources?
No, actually there's nothing to agree. This 10.7 is the last closed tender price. 1186 is the last closed tender price. 1499 is the last closed tender price. 1860 is the CEB submission last month on the next 3 months cost of Norachole. So there's no, I don't think there's any dispute.
So what is the justification? What is the argument that the CEB is putting forward to you in not taking this forward? Have they given any reason for not taking it forward?
CEB has not given officially any reason other than they have questioned the legality of our approval. Apart from that, no technical or pricing issue has been put forward by CEB officially.
On what premise have they questioned the legality of the PUCSL's approval?
They have cited few things, but I don't see any issue in that because Act is very clear. Who should prepare it, who should approve it, who has the authority to amend it. Everything is very clear in that.
Because I mean, if the PUCSL can't regulate the CEB, then there's no point in having a PUCSL.
Yes.
I also want to ask you, the Power and Energy Secretary, Mr. BMS Bhattacharya, is talking about, he says, we want a cabinet decision on what policies must be followed by the CEB. Once a cabinet decision has been made, neither the CEB nor the PUCSL can object to each other's decision as has been done in the past. Now, this is a very interesting statement from Mr. Bhattacharya, because why do you require a cabinet decision when the president and the government have already stated their policy of moving towards sustainability, a sustainable era, the blue-green budget, a blue-green economy? So when the president and the cabinet have already given clear policy direction, what is the need for another cabinet decision?
Actually, this decision we are not aware of. I think it's done by the ministry. So the policy, now there are two things in the generation plan. One is the least cost aspect. I think it is very clear what is least cost. And number two is the government policy. Of course, any decisions of the commission should be in line with the government policy, and the current policy available to us, the decision is in line with that policy also. So therefore I don't see any issue.
The Public Utilities Commission is an independent commission appointed by the Constitutional Council,
appointed by the minister on the recommendations of the
Constitutional Council. But I'd like to ask you this question: are you allowed to function independently and impartially?
Yes, no one has interfered in our decision-making process, the commission decision-making process.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar Singh. We're going for a short commercial break. When we come back, it's the final segment of this very interesting, this very riveting program of Biz First in Focus. Welcome back to Biz First in Focus. We're discussing a recent report compiled by the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka on the financial losses that will be caused as a result of delays in implementing power plant projects. We took one example that we've been focusing on this program, which is that the PUCSL forecasts that an 18-month delay in the implementation of the Kerawala-Pittiya 300 megawatt combined cycle power plant will lead to a loss of 28 billion rupees to the state. Just to remind our viewers, 28 billion rupees, that's more than what the government hopes to recover through the debt recovery levy each year. Just some food for thought. We're in conversation with Mr. Damitha Kumarasinghe, Director General of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka. Mr. Kumarasinghe, I want to ask you about a statement that Mr. Bhattacharya has been quoted in the newspapers today as saying they don't want to work together. The two institutes do not discuss or negotiate. For example, if the CEB proposes a 300 megawatt power plant, instead of discussing the proposal, the PUCSL will reject it. I am always intervening. I'm getting fed up. Two state institutes must work hand in hand, not undercut each other. I have a problem here. He says the two state institutes must work hand in hand and must work together. I wonder if the Power and Energy Secretary realizes the relationship between a regulator and a public institution that is subject to that regulator. If the public institution is working hand in hand with the regulator, is there any regulation that's happening?
Actually, you are spot on now. Regulator, the CEB or the other public institution is not the only stakeholder as far as the regulator is concerned. We have about 200 other licensees. We have general public, the consumers. On the
water board.
Water board is a big consumer of electricity as well, and also we have to be in line with the government policy as well. So there are so many stakeholders, and the regulator should look at the interests of all these stakeholders, and then decide. Then take decisions. Number one. Number two, if you can remember about the generation plan, there was so few public consultations were also there. A lot of participation of experts the state institutions, the public institutions were there. So all these stakeholder views were taken into account in deciding the on the long-term generation plan. Apart from that, there are two other important things in that: the least cost aspect as well as the government policy. All those things are taken into account. So, so we will not be able to negotiate and agree on anything between regulator and service provider. So regulators' job is to ensure that the interests of all the stakeholders are met, including the government through the policy.
And can I ask you very quickly, are you confident that in the long-term generation plan 2018 to 2037 that purpose has been accomplished, that the PUCSL has accomplished, that has fulfilled that task of looking into all of the stakeholders and coming up with the least cost plan that is also in line with government policy?
Yeah, exactly.
So why is the Power and Energy Secretary not confident in the PUCSL? Is he not? Is it a lack of confidence in the PUCSL? Because clearly he wants you to discuss and negotiate with the CEB.
No, actually, in the decision-making process, there were so many discussions, so many opportunities were given to the CEB and the other stakeholders to come on board and represent their views to the Commission. So, Commission has taken all the views as well as the ground reality also on the least cost, government policy, and the stakeholder interests.
There's been a lot of talk in the recent past. We've seen environmentalists, even energy experts, who have been talking about this coal addiction that the CEB seems to have. Do you think that the CEB is addicted to coal?
I cannot comment on that, but what I can say is that we all should work towards getting the least cost long-term generation expansion plan, and also we have to consider the impacts for the society, the environment, which is embedded in the legislation itself, in coming up with the solutions for this.
Do you think that the PUCSL needs more teeth in order to fulfill its task of regulation, of effectively regulating
no, I think we have enough regulatory powers here. The issue is if an institution is losing because of the non-implementation of the plans, then it's a problem of that institution to look into that.
But when that institution is a state institution, it's a problem for the taxpayer as well.
Yes, on the
there's a national audit bill that has been proposed. If a certain version of it that was drafted by the Auditor General and other stakeholders, if that is passed, it will give the Auditor General sweeping surcharge powers, which means that the losses that you're talking about in this report can be charged from the officials responsible. If the Auditor General feels that their neglect or their failure to carry out their duty has led to these losses, he can impose a surcharge on those officials. Do you think that that would be a positive step towards getting the CEB to get started on these power plants?
I'm not very much familiar with the audit bill, so what I think is that it's a matter of getting the conducive structures going on, so that implementation will be done swiftly and on time. So we have to think about how we can get these units or the institutions geared to implementation rather than delays.
Thank you very much, Mr. Damita Kumarasinghe, for coming on BizFirst in Focus and for enlightening us on the current status of the long-term generation plan and the financial impact that delays in implementing these power plants will have. These numbers are alarming, they're staggering, they're crazy, they're nuts. I hope that action will be taken sooner rather than later. Thank you very much, for coming on the show. And that's a wrap of Biz First in Focus. We'll see you again, same time, same place next week. Until then, join in the conversation on our Facebook page. What do you think? Should the PUCSL be given more teeth to force the CEB into implementing the long-term generation plan? Is a power crisis on the horizon, or is a power crisis racing towards the shore like a tsunami? I'm Nadim Majid. Good night and good luck.